Welcome back to DreamWave English. I'm Sophia, and today you are stepping into one of the most powerful, immersive listening experiences you will ever find at the C2 level. But before we begin, I want you to imagine something with me. Picture yourself sitting in a cozy cafe in Boston or New York. Around you, real native speakers are having real conversations, fast, natural, spontaneous. You can hear their voices overlap, pause, shift from one idea to another. Some speak clearly, some speak quickly, some mumble, some use idioms you have never heard before. But instead of feeling lost, you suddenly understand every word. You follow every nuance. You catch every detail. You are not just listening to English, you are living it. That is exactly what this video is designed to help you do. In this first segment, I want to pull you directly into the real world of English, as it is spoken in everyday life. Not textbook English, not scripted English, not simplified English, but authentic, natural, unscripted English that native speakers use with one another when they are relaxed, emotional, tired, excited, or rushed. And here's the best part. I have built this lesson in a way that even new English learners can follow. The explanations are simple, the language is clear, the progression is smooth. So no matter your level, you will understand the meaning behind the conversation, and you will improve your listening skills faster than ever. Before we dive into the first real-life conversation, let me prepare your mind for what you're about to hear. When it comes to advanced listening, the biggest challenge is not vocabulary. It is not grammar. It is not even pronunciation. The true challenge is processing English at the natural speed of thought, not the artificial speed of a textbook. Native speakers connect sounds. They drop sounds. They interrupt each other. They change direction in the middle of a sentence. They speak emotionally, casually, and sometimes without structure. And that is exactly why you will hear all of those elements in this video. Now, the first conversation you are about to experience takes place in a very common real-life setting. Two friends meeting for the first time in months at a small coffee shop in Chicago. They talk quickly. They jump from topic to topic. They share stories, complain about work, laugh about memories, and react emotionally in natural ways. This is the kind of English you hear every day in American cities, and it is the exact kind of English you need to master if you want to reach a true C2 level. But before we start, I want to give you a powerful listening strategy that will help you get the most out of this practice. When you listen to native speakers, do not try to catch every single word. Instead, focus on meaning units. What is a meaning unit? It is the small chunk of information that carries the idea. Sometimes it's a phrase. Sometimes it's half a sentence. Sometimes it's a group of words that move together, like a single thought. For example, when a native speaker says, "I've been meaning to call you," you do not need to process each individual word. You simply understand the meaning unit. The person wanted to call, but didn't until now. When you train your brain to follow meaning instead of words, your listening ability skyrockets. So as you listen today, stay relaxed. Follow the ideas. Do not chase every syllable. Let the meaning flow to you. Here is how the lesson works. First, I will play the full natural speed conversation, exactly as a native speaker would say it in real life. No slowing down, no simplification, no edits. Then I will break it down into sections and guide you through each part with simple explanations, essential vocabulary, natural expressions, and pronunciation notes. You will hear how real connections between words are made. You will hear how certain sounds disappear. You will hear how emotions shape tone and rhythm. And by the end, you will understand the entire conversation clearly, confidently, and naturally. But before we play the dialogue, let me prepare your mind with a quick preview of the situation. Two friends, Emily and Jordan, haven't seen each other in about 6 months. They are meeting at a local cafe called Harbor Street Coffee. Emily has recently changed jobs, and Jordan just returned from a trip overseas. They start their conversation casually, but soon they dive into updates about work, travel, relationships, future plans, frustrations, and personal goals. The conversation flows the way real conversations do. Unpredictable, emotional, fast, and full of natural expressions that advanced learners often struggle with. As you listen, pay attention to 3 things. First, the rhythm. Every native speaker has a unique rhythm, and understanding rhythm helps you understand meaning. Second, the emotional shifts. Notice when the voice rises, falls, softens, or speeds up. These emotional changes often carry more meaning than the words themselves. And third, the transitions between topics. Native speakers rarely say, "Let's change the topic now." They simply shift, and learning to recognize these shifts will make you more fluent in real conversations. Now take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, let your mind open. You are about to step into the first real-life native conversation of this training. Remember, your goal is not perfection. Your goal is exposure, immersion, growth. Let's begin with the full conversation. Natural speed, no interruptions. Before we break the conversation down, I want you to hear it one more time. This repetition is important because your brain needs exposure before analysis. The more you hear natural English, the more familiar it becomes, and the faster you absorb patterns without even noticing. So listen again, focus on the flow, and simply allow the sounds to wash over you. You do not need to catch every word. You just need to understand the feeling, the rhythm, the movement. Now that you have heard the conversation twice, let's begin our deep dive analysis. We will work through the first major section of the dialogue, line by line, idea by idea. Remember, this is advanced listening training, but I will explain everything in simple English so learners of all levels can benefit. Here is the opening line you heard from Emily. "Jordan, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it's actually you. How long has it been? 5 months? 6? Let's slow this down and examine what is happening." Notice how Emily's voice rises quickly at the beginning. She is surprised. She did not expect to run into Jordan at the cafe. This is a common tone you will hear among native speakers when they unexpectedly meet someone they know. Let's look at the rhythm. Emily does not say every word separately. She connects them. In natural speech, it sounds like this. "I can't believe it's actually you" becomes something closer to "I can't believe it's actually you." The words blend together into one long meaning unit. This is the kind of connected speech that often confuses learners. But once you understand the pattern, it becomes much easier to follow. Now, let's listen to Jordan's reply. "Emily, wow, it's really you. I think the last time we saw each other was sometime in the spring, maybe late April." Notice the tone here. Jordan's voice is warm and slightly amused. He is genuinely glad to see her. Native speakers often express emotion not only through words, but through their pacing. Jordan pauses briefly, before saying, wow, which gives the moment feeling. These small emotional pauses happen constantly in real-life speech. Now let's break down the vocabulary. The phrase, sometime in the spring, is very natural in spoken English. It means he does not remember the exact date. Many native speakers use sometime when they want to give a general time without being specific. The second expression, late April, is also extremely common. It means the last part of the month, usually around the third or fourth week. Understanding these expressions will help you follow casual conversations more easily. Next, let's move to Emily's response, which begins to reveal a shift in the conversation. I know, right? Time has been moving so fast lately. I feel like the last few months just disappeared. But seriously, sit down. Tell me everything. How have you been? Here, Emily uses one of the most common natural responses in American English. I know, right? This is used when two people strongly agree about something. It is friendly, casual, and extremely common among native speakers. If you want to sound natural, this is a useful expression to learn. Next, she says, time has been moving so fast lately. This is a typical complaint people make when they feel busy or overwhelmed. It is not about the literal speed of time, but about perception. The past months felt like they went by quickly. Then she continues, I feel like the last few months just disappeared. This is another metaphor native speakers love. Time did not literally disappear, but it felt that way. Native speakers often express feelings with metaphors, and understanding them helps you interpret meaning, even when the words sound confusing. Finally, she shifts the topic with, but seriously. This phrase signals that she wants to move to a more focused or meaningful conversation. You will hear this all the time in real-life speech. Native speakers rarely announce topic changes directly. Instead, they use emotional transition phrases like, but seriously, anyway, by the way, or speaking of which. Now let's listen to Jordan again. I've been good, honestly. A little tired, because the trip back from Tokyo was long, and I'm still dealing with the time difference. But overall, things have been pretty great. Work has been busy, but in a good way. Here we have several important expressions. First, honestly. This is used when someone wants to speak truthfully or emphasize that they are being sincere. Next, he mentions the trip back from Tokyo. This is the first clue to his recent travel story. Then he says, I'm still dealing with the time difference. This is how native speakers describe jet lag without using the word jet lag. Instead of saying, I am jet lagged, many native speakers say, I'm dealing with the time difference. Next, he says, work has been busy, but in a good way. This is another natural expression. It means there is a lot of work, but it feels positive or productive. This is extremely common in American work culture, where people often want to show they are busy, but still doing well. Now pay attention to Emily's next reaction, because it reflects natural curiosity and emotional engagement. Tokyo, wait, you actually went. I remember you telling me about it months ago, but I thought you were still planning. How was it? Tell me everything. What did you do? What did you see? This entire section is a series of rapid, emotional questions. Native speakers often speak like this when they become excited or curious. Notice the rising tone in every question. Notice the fast pacing. Notice the repeated phrase, tell me everything. This is not literal. She does not expect him to tell every detail of the trip. It simply means, I want to hear about your experience. This kind of emotional rhythm is essential to understanding advanced English conversations. The meaning is carried not only in the words, but in the tone, speed, and excitement. Jordan then begins a longer explanation, but we will pause here and analyze more deeply in the next section. In the upcoming part, you will hear Jordan describe his trip with natural expressions, idioms, humor, and emotional shifts. This will be a perfect opportunity to strengthen your high-level listening skills. Let's continue exactly where we left off. Emily has just reacted with excitement to Jordan's mention of his trip to Tokyo. And now we move into a longer, more detailed section of the conversation. This part is especially valuable for advanced listening practice because it contains natural storytelling, descriptive language, emotional reactions, and spontaneous changes in direction. All of these elements occur constantly in real-life English, and mastering them will help you understand native speakers more easily. Here is Jordan's next line. Yeah, I finally went. Honestly, it was incredible. Tokyo is like this mix of ultra-modern energy and really peaceful traditions. 1 minute you're standing in front of a temple that's hundreds of years old, and the next minute you're surrounded by neon lights and crowds of people moving faster than you can even process. It's intense, but in a good way. Let's break this down slowly and simply. Notice how Jordan begins with, "Yeah, I finally went." This sentence feels casual, almost like a sigh of relief. The word finally shows that this trip was something he had planned or wanted to do for a long time. Using "yeah" at the beginning is also natural for spoken English. It softens the sentence and makes it sound friendly and conversational. Next, he says, "Honestly, it was incredible." The word honestly is used again to show sincerity. Native speakers often use it to emphasize that they are expressing real feelings, not exaggerating or inventing something. Now listen to the next part carefully. Tokyo is like this mix of ultra-modern energy and really peaceful traditions. This is a classic comparison you will hear often when English speakers describe experiences. The phrase "like this mix-of" is extremely common in natural descriptions. It means the place combines two opposite or contrasting qualities. Here, he is describing the balance between modern and traditional elements. For learners, this is a useful phrase to adopt because it makes your own English sound more natural. Next, he gives a vivid example. 1 minute you're standing in front of a temple that's hundreds of years old, and the next minute you're surrounded by neon lights and crowds of people moving faster than you can even process. This is an excellent example of descriptive storytelling. Notice how he uses 1 minute and the next minute to show contrast. He doesn't literally mean the situation changed in 60 seconds. He means Tokyo has extreme variety, and you can experience very different environments in a short amount of time. Also, notice the phrase, "moving faster than you can even process." This means the environment is so dynamic or energetic that it feels overwhelming. Native speakers love to use expressions involving mental processing, like, "I can't process this, I'm still processing," or "it was too much to process." You will hear them often in emotional conversations. Now Jordan ends that section with, "It's intense, but in a good way." This is similar to what he said earlier about work. Native speakers often balance descriptions by clarifying whether something was positive or negative. Here, intense could sound stressful, So he immediately adds, but in a good way to show he enjoyed it. Now let's look at Emily's reaction, which is a perfect example of natural conversational engagement. That sounds amazing. I've always wanted to go to Japan, but I never really had the chance. I imagine the culture shock must be huge at first. Did you feel overwhelmed, or did you get used to it quickly? Here we have several useful expressions. First, that sounds amazing. This is a universal response that expresses interest and enthusiasm. You can use it in almost any situation where someone tells you a positive story. Next, she says, I've always wanted to go to Japan, but I never really had the chance. This structure is extremely common in spoken English. I've always wanted to is used to talk about a dream or long-term desire. I never really had the chance means she never had enough time, money, or opportunity. Notice that she does not explain why. Native speakers often leave details unstated when they feel the meaning is obvious. Then she uses the phrase, culture shock. This expression describes the feeling of surprise or confusion when someone first experiences a different culture. It's very common when talking about travel, moving to a new country, or meeting people with unfamiliar customs. Finally, she asks, did you feel overwhelmed, or did you get used to it quickly? This is a classic two-choice question format. The speaker gives two possibilities to help guide the answer. Native speakers often do this when they want to show empathy or frame the conversation gently. Now let's move on to Jordan's reply. This part begins to reveal more emotional depth and natural reflection. Honestly, the first day was a little overwhelming. Everything felt unfamiliar. The sounds, the signs, the pace, even the way people moved through the stations. But after a couple of days, something shifted. I started to relax. I started to feel like I could navigate things. And by the end of the trip, I felt completely comfortable. Here, Jordan uses very emotional and relatable language. First, he says, everything felt unfamiliar. This is a simple but powerful phrase. Native speakers often use felt unfamiliar instead of I didn't know anything, because it conveys emotion rather than just information. Then he lists examples. The sounds, the signs, the pace, even the way people moved through the stations. Listing is a common storytelling technique. It gives details without becoming too structured. The phrase, even the way people moved, adds emphasis. It shows that he noticed small cultural differences. Next, he says, but after a couple of days, something shifted. The phrase, something shifted, is figurative. It means his mindset changed. There was no physical shift. He simply began to feel more comfortable. This kind of expression is very common in advanced English. Now he continues. I started to relax. I started to feel like I could navigate things. Notice the repetition of I started to. This is intentional. It creates rhythm and shows a gradual process. Native speakers often repeat structures like this when describing personal growth or emotional change. Finally, he ends this part with, and by the end of the trip, I felt completely comfortable. This is a classic conclusion to a travel story. The meaning is clear. The experience was challenging at first, but rewarding in the end. Now we move to Emily's next response, which opens the door to a deeper conversation about personal growth, life changes, and emotional development. This part will continue in part 4. Let's continue right where we left off. Jordan has just finished describing how he gradually became more comfortable in Tokyo, shifting from feeling overwhelmed to feeling confident. Now Emily reacts in a way that deepens the emotional tone of the conversation and transitions into a more reflective topic. Here is Emily's next line. That's really inspiring. I mean it. It sounds like the kind of experience that changes you a little. You know, travel does that. It forces you out of your routine, out of your comfort zone, and suddenly you see everything differently. Do you feel like it changed you in any way? This section is full of meaningful expressions. First, she says, "That's really inspiring. I mean it." The phrase, "I mean it," is important. Native speakers use it when they want to emphasize sincerity. It removes any sense of exaggeration and makes the compliment feel genuine. Next, Emily says, "It sounds like the kind of experience that changes you a little." Notice the phrase, "the kind of experience that." This is common in conversational English when describing something meaningful or transformative. Then she adds, "a little," which softens the statement. Native speakers often soften emotional ideas to make them feel less dramatic and more natural. Then she continues, "Travel does that. It forces you out of your routine, out of your comfort zone." Here we find two classic expressions, routine and comfort zone. These are widely used in English when people talk about personal growth. Routine is your daily habits and predictable behaviors. Comfort zone is the emotional space where you feel safe and unchallenged. When someone says an experience forces you out of your comfort zone, they mean it pushes you into unfamiliar or uncomfortable situations that help you grow. Then she ends with a thoughtful question. Do you feel like it changed you in any way? This is a deep, reflective question. It invites a personal answer, not just a factual one. It shows that Emily is interested not just in where Jordan went, but in how he feels and what he learned. Now let's move into Jordan's response. This next part is valuable because it includes introspection, natural pauses, and emotionally honest descriptions. Yeah, actually I do. It made me realize how much I rely on predictability. At home, everything is familiar. I know exactly what to expect every day. But being in a totally different environment made me recognize how rigid my habits have become. I didn't think of myself that way before, but I guess I've been living pretty safely. Let's break this down. Jordan begins with, "Yeah, actually I do." This is a natural and conversational way to confirm something. The word "actually" adds a small sense of surprise, as if he didn't expect to feel this way, but discovered it through reflection. Next, he says, "It made me realize how much I rely on predictability." Predictability means the ability to know what will happen. Many native speakers use the word predictability when discussing routines or the comfort of familiarity. This idea is important because it sets up the contrast he explains next. He continues, "At home, everything is familiar. I know exactly what to expect every day." These sentences are simple but expressive. Everything is familiar means nothing feels new or challenging. I know exactly what to expect every day suggests a stable but possibly repetitive lifestyle. Then comes the key emotional shift. But being in a totally different environment made me recognize how rigid my habits have become. The phrase, "totally different environment," emphasizes the dramatic contrast. The word rigid means stiff or inflexible. Saying, "My habits have become rigid," is a self-reflective realization. He isn't criticizing himself, but acknowledging that he's been living in a predictable, unchanging pattern. Finally, he says, "I didn't think of myself that way before, but I guess I've been living pretty safely." This is a very natural ending. The phrase, "I didn't think of myself that way before," expresses self-discovery, and the expression, "living pretty safely," means he hasn't taken risks or challenged himself much lately. This is the kind of emotional honesty you hear in deeper conversations. Now let's look at how Emily responds, because her reaction shows empathy and understanding while continuing the conversation naturally. I think a lot of us do that without realizing it. Life gets busy, and we fall into routines because they make everything easier. But sometimes those routines start to limit us. And honestly, hearing you talk about your trip makes me realize how long it's been since I did something brave or new. This section is full of useful conversational patterns. She begins with, "I think a lot of us do that without realizing it." This is a classic way to make someone feel understood and not alone. Notice the phrase, "a lot of us." It creates connection and shared experience. Without realizing it means unconsciously or unintentionally. Next, she says, "Life gets busy." This is one of the most universal expressions in English. You will hear it constantly, especially in American English. Then she adds, "and we fall into routines because they make everything easier." The phrase, "fall into routines," is very natural. It means to slip into predictable patterns without planning to. But then she introduces a shift. But sometimes those routines start to limit us. The word limit here means to restrict growth or prevent new experiences. This idea connects back to Jordan's reflection and keeps the conversation cohesive. Finally, she adds something personal. "And honestly, hearing you talk about your trip makes me realize how long it's been since I did something brave or new." The structure, "hearing you talk about your trip makes me realize," is an excellent example of natural spoken English. It shows cause and effect in a conversational way. Also, the words brave and new add emotional dimension. Emily is not just talking about travel. She is reflecting on her own life. Now Jordan reacts with genuine curiosity, which opens a new direction in the conversation. "Really? What do you mean? Has something been stopping you? Or have you just been focusing on other things?" These are gentle, open-ended questions. He doesn't assume too much. He simply gives Emily space to explain. This next part will uncover more about Emily's life situation, her feelings about the recent months, and the deeper themes of change and personal growth. This is where the conversation becomes even more authentic and relatable. We will explore her response in detail in Part 5. Let's continue from exactly where we stopped. Jordan has just asked Emily a gentle, open-ended question. Has something been stopping you? Or have you just been focusing on other things? This type of question invites reflection without pressure. Now, Emily opens up about her life, and this is where the conversation becomes more personal, emotional, and deeply relatable. Here is Emily's response. "I think it's a mix of both. Life has been a lot lately. Work has taken over more than I expected, and I guess I've been putting my energy into things that don't really give anything back. I keep telling myself, I'll take time off, or I'll start something new, or I'll take a risk, but then another month goes by, and I'm in the exact same place." This section is rich with authentic emotional language. Let's break it down slowly and clearly. She begins with, "I think it's a mix of both." This is a very natural way to respond when there isn't one simple answer. Native speakers use a mix of both when explaining a situation influenced by multiple factors. Next, she says, "Life has been a lot lately." Notice the pause, the hesitation. The phrase, a lot, here, doesn't mean quantity. It means emotionally heavy, overwhelming, or intense. This expression is extremely common in modern spoken English. When someone says, "It's been a lot," they are expressing emotional strain without going into painful detail. Then she continues, "Work has taken over more than I expected." The expression "taken over" means work has consumed her time, attention, and energy. This is a common feeling in fast-paced work environments, especially in the United States, where people often talk about struggling to maintain work-life balance. Next, she says, "I guess I've been putting my energy into things that don't really give anything back." This is an emotionally intelligent phrase. Here, "give anything back" doesn't refer to physical return. It refers to emotional fulfillment, personal satisfaction, or joy. Many native speakers express frustration like this, especially when they feel drained or stuck. Then she continues, "I keep telling myself, I'll take time off, or I'll start something new, or I'll take a risk." Notice the pattern. "I keep telling myself" is used when someone repeatedly makes a promise they never follow through on. It expresses the cycle of wanting change, but not acting on it. Finally, she says, "But then another month goes by, and I'm in the exact same place." This is a powerful sentence. It expresses the feeling of time passing without progress. Native speakers often talk like this about periods of stagnation, using phrases like, "Another month goes by," "Nothing changes," or "I'm still stuck." Jordan listens carefully, and his response shows empathy and understanding without rushing to give solutions. "I get that. Really, I do. It's so easy to fall into that cycle, especially when everything feels urgent all the time. You wake up, you work, you come home, you're tired, and the next thing you know, months have disappeared. But I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. You've always been someone who thinks deeply about life, even when you don't feel like you're moving forward." This section shows supportive, emotionally aware language. Let's break it down. He begins with, "I get that. Really, I do." This is a short but powerful expression. It shows he understands and cares. Repeating, "Really, I do," emphasizes sincerity. Next, he says, "It's so easy to fall into that cycle." The word cycle refers to the repeating pattern Emily just described. This reinforces the idea that her experience is normal and common. Then he captures the typical routine many adults experience. You wake up, you work, you come home, you're tired. This list mirrors daily life and creates instant relatability. Listing actions like this is a common technique in spoken English to emphasize monotony. He adds, "And the next thing you know, months have disappeared." This matches Emily's earlier feeling. The phrase, "the next thing you know," shows how time passes quickly without awareness. Then Jordan shifts the tone to something encouraging. "But I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit." This is an important expression in English. It means Emily is being too hard on herself or not recognizing her own strengths. Finally, he says, "You've always been someone who thinks deeply about life, even when you don't feel like you're moving forward." This is personal and supportive. It acknowledges her introspection and her emotional maturity. Now Emily's next response becomes more vulnerable, honest, and introspective. And this is where the conversation deepens into topics many adults struggle with. "I appreciate you saying that. I really do. But I think somewhere along the way, I got scared of failing. I used to be so brave. I used to try new things without overthinking everything. But now I second-guess myself all the time. I worry about wasting time, or making the wrong choice, or disappointing people. And that fear just keeps me stuck. This part contains powerful emotional expressions. Let's break it down. She begins with, I appreciate you saying that. I really do. Similar to, I mean it. This emphasizes genuine gratitude. Next, she says, but I think somewhere along the way, I got scared of failing. The phrase, somewhere along the way, is used when someone doesn't know exactly when a change happened, only that it happened gradually. Scared of failing is self-explanatory, but emotionally deep. Then she contrasts her past and present. I used to be so brave. I used to try new things without overthinking everything. The phrase, I used to, is extremely common when talking about past habits or traits that no longer exist. Next, she says, but now I second-guess myself all the time. The expression, second-guess myself, means she doubts her own decisions. This is extremely common in emotional conversations. Finally, she says, I worry about wasting time, or making the wrong choice, or disappointing people, and that fear just keeps me stuck. Here, keeps me stuck describes emotional paralysis. The pause before keeps me stuck adds heaviness and authenticity. Now Jordan's reply sets the stage for a major turning point in the conversation. That makes sense, and honestly, I think more people feel that way than you realize. But maybe the fact that you're thinking about it now means you're ready for a change. Sometimes awareness is the first step. This transitions perfectly into the next section of their conversation, where the theme of change, growth, and taking small risks becomes the focus. We will explore that emotional shift in part 6. We continue exactly where we stopped. Jordan has just said something meaningful and supportive. Sometimes awareness is the first step. This line marks a turning point in the emotional rhythm of the conversation. Up to now, both Emily and Jordan have been reflecting on past habits, missed opportunities, and personal fears. But from this moment on, their dialogue begins shifting gently toward possibility, growth, and subtle encouragement. Here is Emily's next response. I hope you're right, because lately I've been feeling this pull, like I'm supposed to be doing something different, or maybe just living in a way that feels more like me. But then I start questioning everything. What if I make the wrong move? What if I can't handle the change? What if I'm imagining something that isn't realistic? This section is rich in emotional nuance. Let's break it down simply and clearly. As always, she begins with, I hope you're right. This phrase is both hopeful and vulnerable. It signals desire for change, but uncertainty about how to achieve it. Next, she says, because lately, I've been feeling this pull. This is metaphorical language. A pull doesn't refer to physical force. It means an emotional or instinctive feeling that is drawing her towards something new. Native speakers often use intuitive expressions like a pull, a push, or a nudge to describe internal feelings. Then she continues, like I'm supposed to be doing something different, or maybe just living in a way that feels more like me. This is a common emotional experience, especially for people who feel stuck or disconnected from their own identity. The phrase, feels more like me, refers to living in alignment with her true personality or values. Next, she says, but then I start questioning everything. This is a typical emotional cycle, desire for change, followed by self-doubt. The word everything emphasizes how overwhelming the doubts feel. Then she lists her fears. What if I make the wrong move? What if I can't handle the change? What if I'm imagining something that isn't realistic? This listing format increases emotional intensity. Notice how each question begins with, "What if?" This structure expresses anxiety and uncertainty. Native speakers use "what if" questions frequently when discussing fears or hypothetical concerns. Now let's look at Jordan's response, which is empathetic, grounded, and very natural. "I don't think you're imagining anything. You sound like someone who's outgrown the life they've been living. And that's not a bad thing. It just means you're ready for a new chapter, even if you're not sure what that chapter looks like yet." Change doesn't start with clarity. It starts with discomfort. This is a powerful moment. Let's break it down calmly. First, he says, "I don't think you're imagining anything." This dismisses her fear in a gentle way. It reassures her that her feelings are real. Next, he says, "You sound like someone who's outgrown the life they've been living." The phrase, "outgrown the life," is very emotional and metaphorical. It means she has developed, matured, or changed internally. But her external life hasn't caught up yet. This idea resonates deeply with many people. Then he adds, "And that's not a bad thing." This softens the emotional weight and reframes her feelings positively. He continues, "It just means you're ready for a new chapter, even if you're not sure what that chapter looks like yet." Again, this chapter metaphor is common in English when discussing life transitions. It helps people visualize life as a story with stages. Finally, he says, "Change doesn't start with clarity. It starts with discomfort." This is a strong and memorable line. Many native speakers use similar patterns when explaining emotional truths. It means you don't need to know exactly what you want before beginning to change. Often, discomfort is the signal that growth is coming. Now let's look at Emily's reply, which shows acceptance and introspection. "That actually makes a lot of sense. I guess I've been waiting to feel confident before doing anything different. But maybe confidence comes after you start, not before. Maybe you only feel ready once you've already taken the first step." Here we see a subtle shift in her mindset. Let's break it down simply. She begins with, "That actually makes a lot of sense." This phrase shows an idea has landed, resonated, or become clear. Then she says, "I guess I've been waiting to feel confident before doing anything different." This reveals a common misconception, that confidence must come first. Native speakers often express this realization in emotional conversations. Next, she says, "But maybe confidence comes after you start, not before." This is a beautiful reversal of logic. It reflects maturity and self-awareness. The phrase, "comes after," suggests confidence is something built, not something pre-existing. Then she adds, "Maybe you only feel ready once you've already taken the first step." This is an emotional insight many people discover over time. The phrase, "the first step," is symbolic, representing beginning, action, or courage. Jordan smiles in this part of the conversation. His tone softens, and his words become reflective. "I think that's true. Most people wait for the perfect moment, but it never shows up. Life doesn't come with a sign that tells you when it's time. Sometimes you just have to move, even if you're scared, especially if you're scared." Let's take this apart. He begins with, "I think that's true." Simple supportive agreement. Next, he says, "Most people wait for the perfect moment, but it never shows up." The phrase, "shows up," is casual and natural. It means the perfect moment doesn't appear magically. Then, life doesn't come with a sign that tells you when it's time. This metaphor emphasizes the uncertainty of life. There are no clear signals or instructions. He continues, sometimes you just have to move, even if you're scared. The phrase, just have to move, expresses action without overthinking. It means taking small steps. Then he adds, especially if you're scared. This is powerful. It reframes fear as a sign you're headed in the right direction. Now Emily responds, and this moment reveals her emotional shift clearly. You know, talking to you always helps. You make things feel clearer, or maybe just less heavy. I think I've been carrying so much in my head that I forgot I could talk about it. And hearing your experience, it makes me want to do something for myself too. This response deepens the emotional connection. Let's break it down. She begins with, you know, talking to you always helps. This expresses trust and appreciation. Next, you make things feel clearer, or maybe just less heavy. Calling emotions heavy is metaphorical. It means they feel burdensome. Less heavy means less overwhelming. Then she says, I think I've been carrying so much in my head that I forgot I could talk about it. This is deeply relatable. Many native speakers use carrying something in my head to express emotional overload. She ends with, and hearing your experience, it makes me want to do something for myself too. This shows inspiration and motivation. Jordan responds with a supportive question that opens the next direction of the conversation. What kind of something? Do you have anything in mind, or is it still just a feeling for now? This is where the conversation begins shifting toward Emily's desires, plans, and potential changes in her life. We will explore her response in Part 7. We continue exactly where we left off. Jordan has just asked Emily a gentle but important question. What kind of something? Do you have anything in mind, or is it still just a feeling for now? This question invites reflection. It opens the door for honesty, vulnerability, and a deeper emotional exploration. Here is Emily's response, which sets the tone for this part of the conversation. I think it's still mostly a feeling, but it's stronger than before. It's like I'm starting to notice the small ways I'm holding myself back. And once you notice something, you can't really pretend you don't see it. You can ignore it for a while, but eventually it catches up with you. Her words reveal a new emotional awareness. Let's break it down simply and clearly. She begins with, I think it's still mostly a feeling. This shows she hasn't formed specific plans yet. The phrase, mostly a feeling, suggests she's still in an early stage of self-discovery. Next she says, but it's stronger than before. This indicates the feeling isn't fading, it's growing. When emotions intensify, they often become harder to ignore. Then she adds, it's like I'm starting to notice the small ways I'm holding myself back. This phrase is very common among native speakers. Holding myself back means preventing herself from growing, acting, or pursuing opportunities because of fear or habit. Next, she says, and once you notice something, you can't really pretend you don't see it. This is a relatable emotional truth. Awareness cannot be undone. Then she concludes with, you can ignore it for a while, but eventually it catches up with you. The phrase, catches up with you, is idiomatic. It means the truth eventually confronts you, whether you want it to or not. Jordan responds with empathy and understanding. His tone is thoughtful, supportive, and calm. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Sometimes you don't realize how stuck you are until something inside you starts pushing for more. It's a quiet kind of pressure, almost like a whisper, not loud enough to force you, but just persistent enough that you can't escape it. I think that's how change begins for a lot of people. This is a beautifully expressive moment. Let's break it down. He begins with, "Yeah, I know exactly what you mean." This shows emotional connection and shared experience. Next, sometimes you don't realize how stuck you are until something inside you starts pushing for more. This uses the metaphor of internal push. It's common in native English conversations, especially about motivation. Then he says, "It's a quiet kind of pressure, almost like a whisper." This is poetic. A whisper suggests subtlety. Change rarely begins dramatically. It starts softly. He continues, "Not loud enough to force you, but just persistent enough that you can't escape it." The contrast between "not loud enough" and "persistent enough" adds depth. Persistence is often what leads people toward change. Finally, he says, "I think that's how change begins for a lot of people." This generalizes the idea, making it relatable to listeners. Now Emily responds, reflecting on her deeper emotional landscape. "I think I've been ignoring that whisper for a long time. I kept telling myself I should just be grateful, that what I have is enough, that wanting more makes me unappreciative. But lately, I've realized that wanting more doesn't mean something's wrong with me. It just means I'm growing. And growth isn't something you can apologize for." This is a powerful moment of self-recognition. Let's analyze it. She begins with, "I think I've been ignoring that whisper for a long time." This connects directly with Jordan's metaphor. It also shows emotional honesty. Next, she says, "I kept telling myself I should just be grateful." Many people feel guilty when they want change. This line captures that guilt. She continues, "That what I have is enough, that wanting more makes me unappreciative." These beliefs reflect common emotional struggles. Many native speakers articulate their internal conflict this way. Then she says, "But lately I've realized that wanting more doesn't mean something's wrong with me." This is a crucial turning point. It reframes ambition as something healthy. Finally, she adds, "It just means I'm growing. And growth isn't something you can apologize for." This line is emotionally resonant, powerful, and profound. Jordan responds with a gentle mix of firmness and warmth. "You shouldn't apologize for wanting more out of your own life. That's not selfish, that's human." People confuse comfort with happiness all the time. But comfort can trap you just as easily as fear can. Sometimes the things that feel safe are the same things that keep you small. This is one of the strongest emotional statements in the entire conversation. Let's break it down. He begins with, "You shouldn't apologize for wanting more out of your own life." This validates her feelings. Then he says, "That's not selfish, that's human." This normalizes her desire for growth. Next, people confuse comfort with happiness all the time. This reveals a common psychological mistake. He continues, "But comfort can trap you just as easily as fear can." The contrast between comfort and fear is striking. It suggests that staying in familiar patterns can be just as limiting as being afraid of change. Finally, sometimes the things that feel safe are the same things that keep you small. The phrase, "keep you small," means preventing personal development. It's a metaphor often used in emotional conversations. Emily pauses before responding. Then she speaks with a clarity she hasn't shown in earlier parts of the conversation. "I think you're right. I've been choosing comfort for so long that I didn't even notice how much it was shrinking me. I don't want to feel small anymore, and I'm tired of pretending I'm okay with where I am. I'm not. I want something new, even if I don't know exactly what it is yet. Her words carry weight. Let's look at the core meaning. She begins with, I think you're right. She's accepting a truth, not resisting it. Next, I've been choosing comfort for so long that I didn't even notice how much it was shrinking me. Again, the metaphor of shrinking communicates emotional restriction. Then she says, I don't want to feel small anymore. This is a powerful declaration of self-worth. She continues, and I'm tired of pretending I'm okay with where I am. Honesty replaces denial here. She concludes, I want something new, even if I don't know exactly what it is yet. This line captures the essence of transformation, wanting change before knowing what the change will be. Jordan responds quietly, but encouragingly. That's a good place to be, even if it doesn't feel like it. Not knowing is uncomfortable, but it's also full of possibility. And possibility is where everything meaningful begins. This line opens the doorway to the next emotional transition in the conversation. Emily takes a slow breath, and the scene settles into a reflective calm. What do you think the first step should be? She asks. This question is where Part 8 will begin. We continue exactly where Part 7 ended. Emily has just asked the question that shifts the conversation from reflection to action. What do you think the first step should be? Her voice is steady, but there's a fragile hope in it, the kind that appears only when someone is finally ready to do something different. Jordan takes a moment before responding. He isn't rushing. He knows the weight behind her question. This isn't about giving advice. It's about guiding someone toward their own truth. I think the first step is honesty, he says. Not with other people, with yourself. You've spent so much time trying to convince yourself that everything is fine, that you forgot to ask what you really want. So maybe the first step is letting yourself tell the truth, even if it's messy, even if it doesn't make sense yet. This moment sets a gentle but profound tone. Let's break his answer down. He begins with, I think the first step is honesty. This is simple but powerful. Many people want change, but they hide their real desires, even from themselves. Then he clarifies, not with other people, with yourself. This distinction matters. Self-honesty is harder than honesty with others. He continues, you've spent so much time trying to convince yourself that everything is fine. This shows he has been paying attention to her emotional patterns. Next, that you forgot to ask what you really want. This line highlights a common human issue, ignoring personal needs. Then he says, so maybe the first step is letting yourself tell the truth. This idea frames truth as permission, not pressure. Finally, even if it's messy, even if it doesn't make sense yet, this reassures her that clarity can come later. Emily listens quietly, letting his words sink in. When she speaks, her tone is thoughtful, but slightly unsure. I don't know if I even know the truth anymore. I've been so focused on doing the responsible thing, the practical thing, that I stopped thinking about what I actually want. It's like I'm out of practice when it comes to listening to myself. This is an honest confession. Let's break it down simply. She begins with, I don't know if I even know the truth anymore. This shows how disconnected she has become from her own desires. Next, she says, I've been so focused on doing the responsible thing, the practical thing. These phrases reflect societal expectations. Pay the bills, stay stable, don't take risks. Then she adds, that I stop thinking about what I actually want. This contrast between responsibility and desire is relatable to many people. She continues, "It's like I'm out of practice when it comes to listening to myself." This metaphor suggests that emotional self-awareness is a skill that can weaken over time. Jordan nods and responds with empathy. "That's normal. When you spend years doing what you think you're supposed to do, you lose the ability to recognize your own voice. But it's still there. It never disappears. It just gets quieter, and it comes back when you start paying attention again." This is calming, reassuring, and deeply human. Let's analyze it. He starts with, "That's normal." This normalizes her experience and reduces shame. Then he says, "When you spend years doing what you think you're supposed to do, you lose the ability to recognize your own voice." Your own voice, here, is metaphorical. It means your desires, intuition, or identity. He adds, "But it's still there. It never disappears." This is comforting. Finally, it just gets quieter, and it comes back when you start paying attention again. This metaphor suggests that listening to oneself is a gentle, patient process. Emily breathes in slowly. She seems calmer now, more grounded. "I want to believe that. I really do. But where do I even start? I mean, what does paying attention to myself even look like?" This question is genuine. She isn't asking for a quick answer. She's asking for guidance. Jordan thinks for a moment before speaking. When he does, his voice is gentle, almost reflective. Maybe you start by asking yourself what you've been avoiding, not what you want. Sometimes that's too big of a question at the beginning. Instead, ask yourself what you've been running from. What thoughts make you uncomfortable? What dreams keep coming back, no matter how many times you push them away? Those are the places where the truth usually hides. This is psychological insight, wrapped in simple language. Let's break it down. He begins with, maybe you start by asking yourself what you've been avoiding. This shifts the approach from desire to avoidance. Then he says, not what you want. Sometimes that's too big of a question. This is practical. Big questions overwhelm people. Next, ask yourself what you've been running from. Metaphorically, running from means ignoring or avoiding. He continues, what thoughts make you uncomfortable? This guides her toward emotional clues. Then, what dreams keep coming back, no matter how many times you push them away? This is a common experience. Repeated dreams or ideas often reveal hidden desires. Finally, he says, those are the places where the truth usually hides. This creates an image of truth lying beneath fear. Emily takes a moment before responding. When she does, her voice is quieter, but there's a new honesty in it. I think I've been avoiding the idea of starting over, like completely over. New place, new job, new environment. It scares me, but it also excites me in a way I haven't felt in a long time. And every time I push that thought away, it comes right back, stronger. This is a big revelation. Let's break it down clearly. She begins with, I think I've been avoiding the idea of starting over. The phrase, starting over, means beginning a new chapter, leaving old patterns behind. Next, she explains, like, completely over, new place, new job, new environment. This shows the scale of what she's imagining. She continues, it scares me. Fear is normal when imagining big changes. Then she adds, but it also excites me in a way I haven't felt in a long time. Excitement and fear often coexist during transformation. Finally, she says, and every time I push that thought away, it comes right back, stronger. This mirrors what Jordan said about persistence. Jordan looks at her with calm clarity. That's important. Thoughts that return stronger usually mean something. And maybe the fear you feel isn't a warning. Maybe it's an invitation. This final line is subtle but powerful. Fear, in this context, is not danger. It's a signal that something meaningful is calling her. Emily absorbs this in silence, and the atmosphere shifts. There's depth in this moment, a subtle turning point. Then she asks softly, "Do you think it's crazy, wanting to start over?" Jordan smiles, not mocking but warm. "No, I think it's brave." This is the emotional heart of Part 8. And in Part 9, the conversation will move from emotional exploration into the early stages of decision-making. What starting over might actually look like for her. We continue exactly where Part 8 ended. Jordan has just told Emily, "No, I think it's brave." His voice is calm, steady, and sincere. And for the first time in this entire conversation, Emily doesn't immediately respond. She just sits there, letting his words settle into the places inside her that have been tense for too long. After a moment, she finally speaks. "Brave. I don't think anyone has ever used that word to describe me. I've always been the dependable one, the one who stays where she is, the one who doesn't take risks because she's too busy trying not to disappoint anyone." This is a moment of self-recognition. Let's break it down simply. She begins with, "Brave. I don't think anyone has ever used that word to describe me." This shows how deeply her identity has been shaped by others' expectations. Next, she says, "I've always been the dependable one." Dependable means reliable, consistent, trustworthy, good qualities, but limiting when overemphasized. Then, the one who stays where she is. This implies emotional and physical stagnation. She continues, "The one who doesn't take risks because she's too busy trying not to disappoint anyone." This reveals a lifetime spent prioritizing others' expectations over her own desires. Jordan listens intently before answering. Being dependable doesn't mean you're not brave. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that the life everyone expects you to live isn't the life you actually want. It takes courage to disappoint people. It takes strength to choose yourself. This is a powerful, deeply emotional insight. Let's break it down. He begins with, "Being dependable doesn't mean you're not brave." This separates responsibility from identity. Next, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit that the life everyone expects you to live isn't the life you actually want. This touches on authenticity, living for yourself instead of for others. Then he says, "It takes courage to disappoint people." This line is raw and honest. Many listeners will relate to this. Finally, "It takes strength to choose yourself." This reinforces that self-prioritization is not selfish, it's healthy. Emily's voice softens. "I've never thought of it that way. I guess I've spent so much time trying to be good that I forgot to be happy." This is a simple yet profound realization. The idea of trading joy for approval is something many people unknowingly do. Jordan nods. "It happens to a lot of us. You follow all the rules you think you're supposed to follow, and one day you wake up and realize you don't even recognize your own life. And then you have to decide if you're going to keep living it out of habit, or if you're finally going to create the life that feels like yours." This expands on her idea, bringing clarity. He begins with, "It happens to a lot of us." This normalizes her experience. Then he says, "You follow all the rules you think you're supposed to follow." This refers to societal pressure, work, stability, predictability. He continues, "And one day you wake up and realize you don't even recognize your own life." This echoes a common emotional awakening. Finally. And then you have to decide if you're finally going to create the life that feels like yours. This is a deeply motivating thought. Emily sighs quietly, not in frustration, but in release. So, where do I go from here? I mean, if I really wanted to start over, how would I even begin? Everything feels so overwhelming. Her question now shifts from emotional reflection to practical exploration. Jordan speaks slowly, choosing his words with care. You don't start by changing everything. You start by changing one thing. Something small, something manageable. Big changes are built from a series of small decisions. You don't need a full plan right away. You just need direction. Let's break this down. He begins with, you don't start by changing everything. This reduces pressure. Then, you start by changing one thing, something small, something manageable. This makes action feel possible. Next, big changes are built from a series of small decisions. This is a fundamental truth about transformation. Finally, you just need direction. Direction, not perfection. Emily takes a slow breath. Okay, so if I had to choose one small thing, I think I'd start by giving myself permission to dream again. I haven't done that in years. I always shut down any idea that feels risky before it even forms. Maybe the first step is just letting myself imagine possibilities. This is a beautiful and honest realization. She begins with, I think I'd start by giving myself permission to dream again. This acknowledges that dreaming itself feels unfamiliar. Next, I haven't done that in years. This implies emotional neglect. Then she says, I always shut down any idea that feels risky before it even forms. This acknowledges fear as a habit, not a barrier. Finally, maybe the first step is just letting myself imagine possibilities. This is gentle, realistic, and hopeful. Jordan smiles with genuine warmth. That's a perfect first step. People underestimate imagination, but imagining something creates a space for it. It makes the impossible feel slightly more possible. And once something feels possible, even a little bit, you start moving toward it naturally. This is an inspiring moment. Let's break it down. He says, that's a perfect first step. Encouraging. Next, people underestimate imagination. This reframes imagination as an active tool. He continues, imagining something creates a space for it. This idea is poetic. Imagination opens emotional space. Then, it makes the impossible feel slightly more possible. This encourages gradual change. Finally, you start moving toward it naturally. It suggests that progress becomes instinctive once vision is allowed. Emily reflects quietly for a moment before speaking again. You know, there's one dream that keeps coming back to me. I've never said it out loud because it feels too big, too unrealistic. But since we're talking about honesty, I guess this is part of it. There is tension, vulnerability, and anticipation in her voice. Jordan leans forward slightly. What is it? Emily hesitates, then finally speaks. I've always wanted to live somewhere completely different, like a different country, a place where everything feels new, where I could reinvent myself without all the expectations I've been carrying for so long. This is a huge revelation. Let's break it down. She begins with, I've always wanted to live somewhere completely different. This expresses a long-held desire. Then, like a different country, this shows the scale of her dream. She continues, a place where everything feels new. This expresses her craving for renewal. Then she adds, where I could reinvent myself without all the expectations I've been carrying for so long. This highlights the emotional weight she wants to escape. Jordan listens with quiet admiration. That doesn't sound unrealistic. It sounds like someone who finally wants to breathe. And wanting to breathe isn't unrealistic, it's human. These lines are powerful. They validate her dream without diminishing its complexity. Emily looks down for a moment, then says softly, "Do you really think I could do something like that?" Jordan doesn't hesitate. "Yes, I do. And I think the fact that you've been hiding that dream for so long is exactly why it matters." And this is where part 9 ends. Part 10 will reveal the next stage of their conversation. How Emily begins imagining what this new life could look like, and how Jordan supports her through the fear and excitement of that possibility. We continue exactly where part 9 ended. Emily has just asked softly, "Do you really think I could do something like that?" And Jordan responded without hesitation, "Yes, I do. And I think the fact that you've been hiding that dream for so long is exactly why it matters." The room is quiet for a moment. Emily looks like she's breathing differently now. Not heavier, not anxious, but clearer, as if something inside her is finally unfolding after years of being pressed down. After a thoughtful pause, Emily speaks. "You know, the idea of moving somewhere completely different used to terrify me. I always imagined it was something other people could do. People who were bolder, more adventurous, more confident. But not me. I thought I wasn't allowed to want something that big." Let's break down her meaning gently. She begins with, "The idea of moving somewhere completely different used to terrify me." The word terrify expresses deep fear. Next, she says, "I always imagined it was something other people could do." This reflects a common internal barrier, believing dreams belong to others. She adds, "People who were bolder, more adventurous, more confident." This is comparison, a habit many learners of English and many adults fall into in real life. Then she ends with, "But not me. I thought I wasn't allowed to want something that big." This shows internalized limitations, not external ones. Jordan watches her with calm attention. Dreams don't check qualifications, they just show up. And the people who follow them aren't always the bold ones. Usually they're the ones who finally get tired of staying small. The ones who reach a point where staying the same hurts more than changing. This is another profoundly human observation. Let's break it down simply. He says, "Dreams don't check qualifications." This means dreams don't require permission or credentials. Next, they just show up. Dreams appear naturally, without approval. Then, and the people who follow them aren't always the bold ones. This contradicts Emily's belief. He continues, "Usually they're the ones who finally get tired of staying small." This connects back to her earlier confession. Then he says, "The ones who reach a point where staying the same hurts more than changing." This is a powerful emotional truth. Change often begins in discomfort. Emily gives a small, thoughtful smile. "I think I'm getting close to that point. I don't feel okay staying where I am anymore. Not physically, not emotionally. Everything feels too tight, like I don't fit inside my own life." This is beautifully expressive. Too tight is metaphorical, describing emotional restriction. Jordan nods slowly. "That feeling matters. People only talk about excitement when they think about change, but discomfort is just as important. It's your mind telling you that you've outgrown your surroundings." Let's break this. He says, "People only talk about excitement, but discomfort is just as important." This reframes negative emotions as signals, not obstacles. Next, it's your mind telling you that you've outgrown your surroundings. This metaphor paints a clear emotional picture. Emily shifts slightly in her seat, as though something inside her has clicked. So if I didn't ignore this feeling, if I actually listened to it, what would that even mean? What would I do first? Jordan doesn't give her a step-by-step plan. Instead, he gives her something simpler and more powerful. It would mean letting yourself explore without shutting it down. Start small. Look at places you've always been curious about, not with commitment, just curiosity. Let yourself imagine living there. See what ideas stick and which ones fade. Let's break this idea down for learning. He begins with letting yourself explore without shutting it down. This encourages openness. Then, look at places you've always been curious about. This makes the dream tangible. Next, not with commitment, just curiosity. This removes pressure. He continues, let yourself imagine living there. This brings her vision to life. And finally, see what ideas stick and which ones fade. This suggests natural emotional filtering. Emily nods slowly, absorbing everything. That actually sounds doable. I guess I've been imagining this as a huge, dramatic decision. But maybe it doesn't have to be all at once. Maybe the first step is just letting myself think about it without fear. This shift is crucial. She says, that actually sounds doable. This signals relief and possibility. Then, I've been imagining this as a huge, dramatic decision. Big decisions often feel overwhelming. Next, maybe it doesn't have to be all at once. This aligns with the theme of gradual change. Finally, letting myself think about it without fear. A powerful emotional change. Jordan responds warmly. That's exactly the point. You don't have to move tomorrow. You don't have to quit everything. You just have to allow yourself to consider a future that looks different from your present. That alone can change everything. Let's break it down. The heart of his message is that imagination itself is a form of progress. Emily exhales slowly. For the first time in this conversation, she looks hopeful. Not overwhelmed, not afraid, but hopeful. You know what's strange? The more I talk about it, the less impossible it feels. It's almost like I've been holding my breath for years without realizing it. And now I'm finally letting it out. This metaphor is powerful. Holding my breath symbolizes emotional suppression. Jordan gives a small, understanding smile. That's what honesty does. It gives you room to breathe again. His tone is soft, warm. Emily takes a moment and then asks a question that reveals the next emotional turn. Have you ever felt this way? Like you needed to start over somewhere new? This shifts the focus to Jordan's personal experience. In earlier parts, he hinted at struggles, but now Emily is inviting him to share more. Jordan thinks for a moment, then answers quietly. Yeah, I have. A few years ago, actually, I felt trapped in a life that looked fine from the outside, but felt wrong on the inside. I was successful, stable, checked all the boxes, but I wasn't myself. I wasn't happy. So I left. Not everything at once, but enough to give myself space to breathe. Let's break this down. He says, I felt trapped in a life that looked fine from the outside, but felt wrong on the inside. This is a powerful contrast between appearance and reality. Next, successful, stable, checked all the boxes. He means society-approved life. Then, but I wasn't myself. I wasn't happy. Honesty. He continues, so I left. Not everything at once, but enough to give myself space to breathe. This connects directly to his guidance earlier. Emily listens carefully, appreciating his vulnerability. What was the hardest part? She asks softly. Jordan looks down for a second before answering. Letting go of who I thought I was supposed to be. These words land heavily between them. He continues slowly. It wasn't the fear of leaving. It was the fear of disappointing the version of myself I had been trying to live up to for so long. This is one of the deepest emotional truths in the entire script. Emily whispers, almost to herself. I think that's exactly what I'm afraid of. Jordan meets her eyes. I know, but once you let go of who you think you're supposed to be, you finally make room for who you actually are. Silence fills the space, not heavy, not tense, just meaningful. Emily nods, more certain now. Then maybe that's the real first step. Not choosing a destination, not making a plan, just letting go of the version of myself that's been holding me back. Jordan smiles gently. That sounds like the beginning of something real. And that is where part 10 ends. At the moment where fear transforms into possibility, and possibility becomes the seed of a new chapter. Thank you so much for spending this time learning with me. Keep practicing every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Your effort will bring big results over time. And most importantly, enjoy the journey. You are not just learning English, you are becoming an English speaker. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the DreamWave English, and turn on the bell icon so you don't miss future lessons. I'll see you in the next practice. Keep believing in yourself and keep speaking with confidence.